You doing anything? There we go. Okay, brilliant. Right, I'm just going to share my screen then. Okay, so welcome everyone to the April Learning Leaders Network session. So this is the third session of the year, and it's really great to see some faces we haven't seen for a while. And I was saying that, you know, I think it might be a relatively small group because of the Easter holidays, but then Helen was saying actually that's what's enabled her to come. So that's really good. So we're joined here today by Rick, who will do an introduction to himself in a moment when I hand him over. So just a little reminder of what we've got coming up for the rest of the year. So obviously we're joined by Rick today, who's going to be doing a session on Courage is Contagious, and I'll let him fill you in what that's going to be about. Next month, we are joined by Kathy Nell, who's going to be doing a session on lies and stereotypes about your leadership shadow. June, we've got a networking event where you can just come and do more networking with each other. Then July, we've got a session by Talua on inclusive leadership. September, we're doing a share a problem. So it's bringing a problem that you might be having in the workplace and using the Learning Leaders Network to help you come up with solutions. And then October, we've got our last delivered session by Lee Peterson, who's doing a session on leading with heart. And then in November, we've got the final networking session. And then, believe it or not, I'm like, how have we only got 6 left? It'll be the end of 2025, which just seems to be flying right now. So just to what would be great is if you could just put into the chat box who you are, what company you're from, and then just give yourself a rating about what you think your ability is to connect and engage with your teams within your workplace. Obviously, this is a safe space, so we encourage you to just be really honest about it. I'll just let you do that for a minute. Lovely. We've got quite a good global spread today. And this really is just a good opportunity. If there's anybody there that you see that you think I'd really like to connect with them, then obviously we can enable that connection. So just let me know if there's someone there that you would like to connect with, and we can put you in touch. Lovely. Okay, so what today then is about. So let me just get my screens all sorted again. So the objectives of Rick's session today is he's going to explore how you're able to connect and engage your teams to drive extraordinary performance by understanding and overcoming the ultimate performance blocker, which is fear. So I'm sure we've all at points in our work lives felt fear. And that's either stopped or hindered us being able to perform. So I'm really excited to hand over to Rick and let him take the lead now on this session. So over to you, Rick.
Thanks, Lauren. Good afternoon, ladies. I can say, ladies, we've got no other guy in here apart from me, so we're all good with that. So my name's Rick Cooper. I'm a inspirational leadership and mental performance or high performance coach, whichever we want to go with that. Ultimately, I help individuals and teams get massively clear on visions, how we underpin that with purpose and values, and then as a leader, how we embody those values to create engagement, inspiration for the people we lead. What I'm going to do is try and make this as interactive as possible. I'm glad Lauren opened up with that nice little kind of icebreaker to declare who we are and how much we rate ourselves, because in the middle of this, I want to have a good, honest, open forum of what we think fear steals from us. And it can be a touchy subject, because as soon as I go into this and we realize that our fear as leaders is attached to vulnerability being attached to courage, sometimes people will get a bit uncomfortable in their seat and shuffle around thinking, oh, vulnerability, that must mean weakness. And I'm going to completely dissolve what that means and how we become more courageous leaders that do expose more potential in the workplace. So ladies, what I was saying to Lauren earlier, normally this would be the first time I've run this presentation on tech. I've normally done this in person with 100, 200 people in the room on multiple occasions. So what I'd normally do is have a really good icebreaker where we do like a company rock, paper, scissors. Like I normally just start off by saying, go and find someone better looking than you. You go and laugh, find someone better looking than you. We play World Championship, rock, paper, scissors. Winner goes and finds another winner. Loser supports the winner, and we carry on supporting the winner until we get to one-on-one in the room. Most people think it's because we're looking for competitive environments. It actually isn't. Loves, if you could just go on a slide for me.
Yeah, of course.
The reason why we do it is more at the end of it, we have that one person in the room that we all cheer for, that we've all got behind. That person sits down and normally give them the crown, and everybody cheers for that person that's won. As leaders, I think sometimes we look at the game of leadership as a zero-sum game. We look at it as an isolated game, and we think that it's just about us and our leadership team and that everyone's competing against us, but it's not. When we look at an icebreaker like that, it's the focus on, it's less about who we follow and all about how we follow. Whoever won in that game, no one had any loyalty to that person. They just supported and showed up for the person in front of them. So we start to get big picture thinking. So as a leader, it's about how we lead, not who. Okay, and with that, it means we can start to step into our own potential by relaxing more and embodying the values we underpin. I just had a conversation actually before this call. I bizarrely had a power cut at 12 o'clock, so I had to quickly pack the laptop, phone one of my friends, and be like, have you got Wi-Fi? Because I've got an important call, 1:45. And we're just having a conversation because he's in corporate and working from home for the day. And he said, Rick, do you know where it all falls down in my 37 years? And I said, what? So I've worked for 15 companies. We spend approximately 2 million a year on establishing where we're going, what the vision is, what the values that underpin it, and what the purpose is. And he goes, do you know what every leader falls down with? And I said, what is it? Tell me. And he said, because the following day, not one leader embodies the values that they've put in place for the company. And everybody knows it. Everybody knows it. So, sorry, last, we can go across the slide. What I want to do, ladies, is get you familiar with kind of my background and get to know me and why I feel like I'm qualified to talk about this. Because I don't want to be another person that can talk about values and purpose but have no background. When I left school, I wanted to be a professional sportsman at the highest level. Now, when in sport, particularly as like corporate, we're very big on values. The changing room normally has all our values around it to live it. I was extremely driven. I've led every team I've been part of as far as sports concerned. Unfortunately, that dream came to an end at 20 years old, and I broke my back and lost my legs. Don't worry, I'm not in a wheelchair right now. I taught myself to walk again. Part of that journey was coming back from that and trying to figure out where I want to go. So in a time of toil, in a time where we're feeling tested, it comes back to what we do at the very top level as leaders. Where do I want to go and why do I want to go there? I think we have to get super clear on what the vision is for ourselves and why we want that vision. And that's how we create buy-in and connection with those we employ and lead. If we can't have absolute clarity on where we want to go and why we want to go there, how do we expect to have employees that are willing to run through walls for each other or go the extra mile for the leadership in that company? Ultimately, we lead because we have a really solid purpose behind it, and that purpose is underpinned by whys. Then whys then become, the vehicle becomes our values. So what do we stand for and what do we stand against? And they're the underpinning. And then what employees are always looking for, like sports people, does my leader completely embody and do they have absolute conviction of their values? And one of those values often is honesty. Now, if we understand that honesty stems from the word vulnerability, we then have a workforce to go, is my leader vulnerable? Is my leader willing to share on such a deep level why we are doing what we're doing? Because if he or she can, then I can connect with that because they're showing me my heart. Sorry, Lars, we just move on a slide. So after I broke my back, ladies, I came back and became a London firefighter. So 5 years of rehab. I knew I wanted to be part of a team. I knew I wanted to drive towards purpose, helping others. And we look on this word of belonging. And it was the first point in my life where a leader had put his arm around me and said, "You're one of us now." I can remember going through 20 weeks of training centre. I'm in sport. I spent some time in corporate and just felt completely like they were dysfunctional workspaces. There was no connection, no togetherness. It was something I'd never experienced before. Coming from sport, we really do have each other's back. And then when I went into the corporate space at 21 after my back injury, I just found it cold and heartless. That leaders spent no time with their staff. If they did, it was extremely hierarchical. It was a dictatorship. And it started to mold what I believed in perception of the world. And I went to the fire brigade because I thought, well, if this is what it's going to be, rather than sit behind a desk and go into an office, I want to get hands on and know that I'm actually helping someone. This isn't just about profit. And bizarrely, that's not what the lesson taught me. It was on my first night duty where my officer come up, put his arm around me and said, "You're one of us now. We'll do anything for you to be the best you can possibly be." And it was one of the moments where you have tears in your eyes. You're just like, wow, I didn't have to do anything for that. I've just got to be me because I've already got the feeling of trust and belief in me. And when we all feel that we've got trust and belief, we're able to relax. We're not in a flight or flight mode. We don't look to numb an existence because we're so disheartened, unfulfilled with the place we choose to give most of our hours per week, because we feel we belong. And leaders have the ability, us as leaders have the ability to enable that in everybody that follows us towards the vision and purpose that we've established for our companies. And that's what we want for everybody. But it all comes with that connection. Liza, we don't mind going on a page, please. So where I go with this, ladies, is so a lot of my work is in sport and corporate these days, and we really work hard on this. And this is a quick snapshot. We have a cognitive bias. If any of you are familiar with cognitive biases, we have a metacognitive bias of a towards mindset and a away mindset. So our away mindset is dressed up as avoidance, but we believe it's moving towards something. It's the part of us that looks at our competitors all the time. It's the part of us that wonders if we're prepared enough, so we do extra preparation. It's the part of us that goes, "I'm a perfectionist." And I'll tell you what, raise your hand if you believe yourself to be a perfectionist. Cool. Thank you. So most leaders I work with say, "Yeah, I'm a perfectionist." What we really mean is, I'm shit scared of being found out that I might not know enough or I'm underprepared. So I'll prepare because I'm a perfectionist. Really, I'm really scared that people are going to judge me if it looks like I don't know something. That's what it really means when we say we're perfectionists. The trouble is, none of us are perfect. And the more we put that armor on of perfectionism, the more we create disconnection with those around us. Because all of us know we're not perfect. And so we put an armor on, a mask on. And what we do is we're actually avoiding becoming who we can be. If we can let go of who we are, we give space to be who it is we know we can be. And with that is this moving away mindset that we assess all the risks, we recognize what to avoid, and we become really cautious. So we focus on safety first to not get found out, which enables us then to block all of our curiosity. We stifle our creation. We then put the blockers on to authentic connection with people. Our choices get based then on avoidance of not feeling a certain way or not being judged a certain way. So then we fear failure, and ultimately we have a deep loss of self. All right. Whereas our towards mindset is that of, it's forward thinking. It's, I know where I want to go. I'm clear on this vision. I know why I want to go there. I understand the purpose, know what their values are. When we know that, we experience freedom within ourselves. So we're vision orientated. Our actions are not of avoidance of anything. They're of exploration, of creativity, of connection, of curiosity, of possibility. So we're on purpose. We're willing to innovate and express. We have a deep sense of self. We're willing to bring others with us. We realize this isn't a game of competition. This is a game of collaboration, that we can't be what we want to be without someone else. So rather than compete, we can look at those people that may be in our field and go, "Look, what are you doing? I notice you're doing this right. And it's really driving me to be the best I can be as well. So I've got massive gratitude for what you're doing." And it enables us to get out of this zero-sum game, because we can't be the best we can be without the support of those around us, or at least being inspired by those around us. The downside of it is that when we become really bloody good at something, other people offer us all different paths to go down. So we can sometimes get distracted as leaders and get sometimes caught in our own echo chamber of how great we are. So we can sometimes, with that, we get momentum. We can sometimes come across as being gung-ho. We often can leave things unfinished. And sometimes we don't take the time as leaders to step back to look at our strategy to realize, is this working? Am I still heading towards and behaving in ways that align with our values and our vision? All right. I kind of liken this, ladies, to a horse. I don't know if any of you are into horse racing. I'm not. This is someone else's home, so these pictures of horses aren't mine. But I liken this to a horse, is that when they start a race, they're in the gate and they put the blinkers on the horse. And that horse only knows one way. Because if we took those blinkers off, that horse would look behind to worry about what's behind it. It'd look left and right and it'd get preoccupied with what everyone else is doing next to it. It will start to mold its behaviors unconsciously to what's going on behind and left and right. And we lose sight of where we're meant to be going, which is forward. And the reason why they put the blinkers on a racehorse is because it doesn't need to compare itself to what's left and right. It doesn't need to know about its past or behind, because that's gone and it's finished. We've all got a past. We've all failed. We've all done things we may not should have done, but it's done. So then blinkers go on, that gate opens, and all it knows is, wow, all I need to do is go forward. And like any path in our leadership, the minute we stop looking around us, we know there's going to be obstacles. We know there's going to be fences. We know we're going to have to jump some of those. We know that whatever path we're choosing for ourselves and our company or even our personal life, there's going to be bumps in the road. But without our ability to articulate our vision, without our ability to embody our values, when we hit that fence and we fall straight flat on our face, how do we know how to get back up and what we go towards again? What buy-in do we have from those around us when we fall over and fail, or we become so cold-hearted that they don't follow us? How do we get back up on our feet to then go over the next fence? Otherwise, we become that horse that may not even have the blinkers, that runs around in circles everywhere, left, right, hits the fence anyway because we're comparing ourselves to others. And then we expect people to follow us when we act that way and behave that way. So as we move, before I move into fear, I want us as leaders to understand and start to self-inquire of ourselves. Actually, how am I embodying and how am I communicating? How clear I actually am on our vision? Do I embody the values that may sit on our company website that I designed, that we invested in? How connected are my staff to that? Because they are a mirror of me. And that's another big thing I think as leaders we have to be quite raw on in understanding. Sport's a big thing for this in me, is when people blame the team. Every team, as far as I'm concerned, this is where the cross comes over to corporate and sport. Every single team is a mirror of the leadership. How emotionally intelligent is the leadership? How embodied and sold into their own values and vision is the leadership? Because the team will always be a mirror, which means the performance of that team will be a mirror. Can we move on, please, love? Thank you. So ladies, I'm going to come into what I believe, I used to refer to this as the ultimate performance blocker, being fear. In the corporate space and sports space, we can still use that. And as we go through, I can probably take a more gentle approach today and realizing, in my experience in the last 2 years, fear has become the ultimate block of most things in our life, whether it's performance, relationships, connection, our sense of self in the world. It blocks us from everything. I want to try and help us understand it a bit more today. So when you walk away, we can take this back into our personal and professional life. Fear is the connotation, ladies, to the judgment of others. It all links in, anchors by the judgment of others. That links into, we all as human beings want to belong to something, and that sense of belonging means that our fear is, am I going to be accepted here? Or at the very worst, will I be rejected? So that acceptance and rejection comes into, what do people think of me? How I talk, what I look like, what I wear. Do I adjust my behaviors to fit in, and fit in and belong in are the complete opposite of one another? So we understand that fear is what comes over most of our leadership. Most of our fear comes from some sort of shame story that all of us accumulated as a child. And I'm not going to go too deep on this today, but it's more of a, can we self-examine ourselves to go, wow, where did I first start feeling judged by others? Where did I first go to realize that I had to put an armor on to be accepted? Or what armor did I put on to not be rejected? And how is this now showing up as an adult that leads others, as a parent, a husband, a wife, a leader of a company? Where is this now showing up in me? If we can go on a slide, please, Lyle. So I want to open the room up on this. And I know this, we've only got to know each other for 24 minutes, but we're going to go deep quickly. Now we understand fear being the ultimate blocker. I really want to open the room up to these 3 questions. If we understand that fear has been described as a thief, what do we think that is? Or why do we think that is? What does it steal from us? Is our first question. The second is, what do you feel when you admit you are scared? And our last one is, how does fear affect an individual's performance and relationship with life? So if we understand it from the view of how fear interplays with all of us, I came on this call today, if I'm honest with you, before I left, do I put a polo shirt on? Do I wear my t-shirt? It's really hot. What are they going to think of me? Shaved head, heavily tattooed guy, like talking about an emotional intelligence through the lens of fear. Most leaders start getting uncomfortable because like, I don't fear anything. This is too deep. Emotional intelligence. Why are we talking about emotions? I'm a leader. And I was thinking, do you know what? I could be honest, lady. I was like, fuck it. I don't care. Like, I'm going to go where most people don't want to go. I'm going to just keep my white t-shirt on. I don't care if you're going to judge me on my tattoos. I can't talk about authentic leadership if I'm willing to start bending myself to fit in with my own fears of being judged. And so I'm happy to admit that. So when I feel I'm scared, what do I feel? I feel like I'm going to be judged by the world, that I'm not good enough. That's generally what I think. That when I'm scared, I think I'm not good enough. And when I'm not good enough, I put an armor on and I behave in ways that goes, right, I'm not going to connect too deep with people because I want to project how good I am at something or how much authority I've got. So how does it affect individuals' performance relationship with life? I tell you what, that comes back to my perfectionism that goes, I don't want to be found out. I don't want to be found out to not be good enough. So I'm going to prepare for this talk like I've never prepared before. I'm going to go through all my slides. I'm going to keep reciting it. So I'm so good and powerful at it, no one's going to question me. The bizarre thing is that when I think no one's going to question me, inside I'm absolutely shitting myself, looking over my shoulder, thinking, oh God, oh God, oh God, there's something to hide. What if I get found out? So that's how these interplay for me. And that's someone that's played professional sport. I've been in the fire service in the worst scenarios of being vulnerable. I've gone on to represent Great Britain, luckily, and been in front of 2,000 people. I speak every week in front of hundreds of people, and I have to deal. I self-inquire around this every week, so I know what it's like as a leader in some of our environments of having this relationship. It's not just a case of understanding it; it's something that's never going to go away. So we've got to constantly look at it to bring in our self-awareness, and more so when we're leading others, because we ultimately all of us care for people. When we lead, we care for people. We want to bring the best out of those around us for whatever that agenda is. You know, whether it is for a company to perform really well, we need it to profit well, whether it's because we generally want people to go home and have amazing relationships in their personal life. They're so fulfilled with their work. And when they go home and they feel fulfillment, they generally come back and they perform even better. Whatever our scenarios are, I do believe we have to start looking at this so that each time we feel it, we can breathe into this and go, what's going on with me right now? What's the actual truth versus the story I'm telling myself? So I'm going to take a breather, and we'll open this up for 3 minutes, and just if anyone would be happy to share, I'd love to hear from you. Don't be shy. Come on.
And go. Yeah. I think what's interesting about fear is that it can steal from you your ability to see what you're actually capable of. Because when fear is too looming too large and you're not willing to try, you never find out that actually most likely you can do it. You can do more than you ever expected to be able to do. And so I think, yeah, I'm seeing what Helen's putting in there, and I agree exactly that it steals your ability to try new things and to see what you're capable of, and in that way, it steals your power, I think.
Yeah.
So, do you want me to keep going, or is answering question number one?
If you're happy to, Rachel, yeah, it's fine. Keep going.
Okay. I think for me personally, when I admit that I am scared to people that I trust, Brene Brown says not everyone deserves to hear your story. And so I've had to work hard on identifying the people that I think do deserve to hear that story. And those are the people that I share when I'm scared. And it helps because it allows us to walk through logically and get through the emotion still feel the emotion, but get to the other side where you can actually do something with it. In terms of how it affects performance, I have a rule, and my husband helps hold me accountable to it, which is we don't act out of fear. We act, but we don't act out of fear. So if fear is the thing that is pushing you to make a certain decision, then that's not the decision we make. We either hold till we can get through the fear, or we make the opposite decision, but we are not going to act out of fear. And I find that to be really helpful when you get a bit wobbly. You don't do something that limits you because of your own fear. So.
Thanks for that share, Rachel. Really enjoyed that. Big fan of Brené Brown as well. You'll recognise a lot of this work.
I do. I love her and all of her work. It's been excellent.
I think a lot of things have already been said, but I think fear for me is also something that it takes away. So the first question says fear has been described as a thief. Like, what does it steal? I think it steals opportunity. So by having fear or being insecure, for me, insecurity is also linked to fear, because you're insecure about something, you're scared, and hence you don't take up on opportunities where you can either learn, grow, or do something new. So it definitely takes away opportunity. What you feel when you admit that you're scared, I'm not sure if I really. Maybe if you admit that you are scared, I'm quite an open book. So when I'm like insecure about something, I tend to say it. So I don't know if I really feel worried about saying it. I more say like, but I usually maybe laugh about it. For example, I'm not very good with numbers, and then I say like, oh, I'm very bad with numbers, and it's like my way of making the other person understand that, okay, I might be scared, or I might be insecure about something to do with data crunching, numbers, etc. I'll still do it, but it's not something I'm good at. So in that sense, I'm not scared to say it. I voice it out, but maybe in a more soft way. So and then how does it affect? I think the first thing that I said about missing opportunities, it definitely affects your individual performance. So I've, for example, been a long time in the same company, too long, and more than 21 years. So it's a very, very long time. And very often I've said to myself, although within the same company I've grown tremendously and I've had several different positions, I've always said, maybe I should move to another company at some point. But it scares me to move, because you know what you have now, you know what fabulous company it is. But then are there missing opportunities for me elsewhere? So then maybe that relationship with my life is like I'm maybe blocking myself, or maybe opportunities, not taking opportunities that are out there. So that's very personal what I'm saying, but at least for me, that is something where maybe I have the fear, like, you know what you have now, great company, great values, great people, but you don't know what you have on the other side. And people often say the grass is greener elsewhere, but I don't believe that. So yeah, that's my story about this.
Do you know what I love about that, Halloween, is you've literally almost described how we stay safe in our meta biases of away versus towards. Mm-hmm. We miss opportunities, and we miss them opportunities are growth opportunities.
Yeah, exactly.
Brilliant.
I'm happy to jump in and just share. I think you've hit the nail on the head a lot, Rick, with the environment that you're in, and I think especially in corporate, that even acknowledging that there is some fear, like having a leader or having leadership acknowledging their fears, is, I think, what then keeps a lot of us stuck in terms of thinking, well, I can't admit any fear. And I think that really does, again, dampen creativity and so much more richness that could come forward if we were just honest with, we don't know how to do this, or we've never been in this situation before, or how could we collectively come together. I think personally for me, I mean, I've done it, again, a corporate career, 20 years, and but it was a cancer diagnosis that woke me up. And I think it is the ultimate fear, obviously, of your mortality. But I think it was the thing that really projected me to realize that there's so much more that I want to achieve in my life, and so much more that I want to do. And I just think, like, again, just, like the last comment about being in a corporate job, I would have stayed until I'd retired, unless that actually came and woke me up to how precious life was or is. And I then left and have set up my own business, and I'm doing amazing things. But I just think if that hadn't have happened, that ultimate fear, of life ending, I suppose, you know, I don't know what would have propelled me forward. And I think now, but there was this inner, especially vulnerability, like vulnerability is my strength. And I really recognize that. And I'm not afraid of that anymore. You know, I talk a lot about my cancer experience and I cry nearly all the time on stage, but I never apologize for those tears. And I think that's the authenticity then, because I also realize that when I'm vulnerable, especially when I'm talking to nurses, they cry. And I realize how strong they often have to be day in, day out, and have to hold so much back because they're having to be strong for everybody else. Whereas if I can just give them that 10 minutes to connect with their own vulnerability and their humanness, there's so much more that comes from that in terms of how they then support other people. So I'm all with you in terms of the recognizing I'm afraid, but what can I do about it? So trying to take some of that control back, but I won't let it stop me now in terms of maximizing my life, and really thriving. So yeah, so thank you. This is a really deep topic for me.
My pleasure. Thank you for the share, Bet. Cool. Right. I'll move us into the next slide. We'll touch a bit more on vulnerability in a couple of minutes' time as well. So what I want to try and get us to do is, whilst we move through this, is give us some tools and deeper understanding of how we get closer to exposing ours and other people's intentions through these lenses. So I've got this triangle here of, we've got the self, who we know we really, really are. We've got the ego that informs the self, but tends to drag us away from who we know we are at our heart. And humility is the other part that we often miss, that allows us to come back to who we are. So I've been very, very privileged the last couple of years to working with some high profile people. And one of those was coaching the coach actually of Cristiano Ronaldo, the famous footballer. So he's a great example of how we level this out at the highest level, but only because his actions are applicable to all of us. The self is the part of us that we know, in our case in corporate normally, is the one of us we show when we get home. The relaxed, the softer one, the more expressive one, the one that dances in the living room with their family, the one that is loving and caring, and you know, all those things. And I guess from my point of view, I know when I've done this work on myself, the true me, is someone that's loving, caring. I'm a very sensitive man. I'm very driven. I'm very energetic, and I'm very passionate. Now I go, okay, I know that about me, which means the world can't tell me anything else. Yeah? And in a world that's trying to tell us who to be, it's very difficult to hang on to who we are, because the ego kicks in. And the ego part of us is, when it's too inflated, we become the narcissist. When it's too deflated, we become the walkover. So we don't stand up for who we are, and the ego becomes too big or too small. The thing we need to understand is, when people say, I don't have an ego, we've all got an ego, and the ego has to be level with the self. And I won't go into research and the data on this, but mainly because you have to dig really, really deep for it. And Brené Brown, Rachel's done a great job on identifying this in some of her books. But the ego and the self inform one another. So we often have to find that our sense of self has to match the ego. So they talk to each other. What we need when we're out of balance is when the self becomes too big, we believe it's all about us in the world. When the ego is too shrunk, our boundaries aren't strong enough. When the ego is too big, we have an inflated sense of who we are, and we lose contact with those around us. So the way we get them level is humility. So I'll tell you this story from the elite level, because it applies to all of us. The coach of Cristiano Ronaldo was my client last year, and we got talking. He'd just gone to Manchester United's ground a few years back, and he was telling me a story that when he was in the box, he spoke to the lady that cleaned the box after. So he said he had a tremendous day in the box, fed, watered, with his family. And at the end of the game, Kathy, she's recently just passed away, works at Man United, was nearly 70 years, comes in with her cleaning staff and cleans the box. And Drew says to her, Kathy, tell me, like in all the years you've been here, I'm really interested. Who's the one player that has really stuck out for you, like in your time here? Is it Beckham? Is it Robson? Is it, Cantona? And she went, oh no, there's only one. And he went, oh, who? She went, Cristiano. And he said, what? He's my client. I just thought he's a real egotistical, you know, like I have to work really hard to keep him in check. And she said, no, no, no. She said, Cristiano is the one player that truly, truly knows who he is. She went, that man, after every home game, his family have a box. He's the only player that will run up here after the game, clean all the box with his family, won't let us in, buys everybody birthday cards, remembers most of the staff's birthdays, gets presents for them. She said, he's the only player in my 70 years here who's ever bothered to do that. She goes, his humility is ginormous. So where people get mixed up, he has a very strong sense of self. So when he feels like he's disrespected or the leader isn't towing the line, people think he's an egomaniac, but he's not. She goes, he's a ruthless winner at the heart as well. She said, but don't misunderstand that. She said, he's a ruthless winner with the biggest heart of humility you're ever going to meet in someone. And it was a wow moment where I'm preaching about this. It's like, thank you. I've now got evidence to go back and I can use an example for these talks. But it's a real good leveler to see how we allow ego and self to work together through the lens of our humility has to be ginormous. As leaders, how can we embody that humility? The humility that we've got a workforce that's willing to come in for us, the ability to have a building sometimes to enable them to come together, to be humble, to have a powerful vision that we've spent time and funds on to push forward towards. And it's that level of humility that allows us to connect with ourselves, which enables the bridge to connect with others. So what I'm going to do, ladies, we go on to the next slide, please, Lauren. Where my courage contagious comes from is if we can understand as leaders that vulnerability, we generally think that vulnerability means things like weakness. We think vulnerability means exposure. We think vulnerability means not having authority or being undermined. Vulnerability means being found out to not be good enough. Vulnerability by Greek origin means honesty. So if we understand that vulnerability and courage are also exactly the same thing, as a leader, we can't say we courageously leading or we have courage if we believe vulnerability. I'm keeping you up, Rach, and you give yourself a slap around the face. I call that snide little yawn behind there. If we believe vulnerability to be those things, we're not courageous either, because we're also dishonest and we're liars if we think vulnerability is weakness and having no authority. All right. So our honesty also means truth. If we can be really honest with self and those around us, we can be more truthful with who we are and what we're trying to accomplish within our organizations. And then we're able to communicate that to those around us, those we lead. So we can be truthful, which means we can be trusted, which enables us, because we've got such a deep sense of self, it enables us to also to bridge the gap of trusting in others. When we can sit in truth, we become more authentic. Someone said it in the chat earlier. Let me have a quick look. Who said it? Jokinen said, fear takes my authenticity away, 100%. So we can see there that vulnerability and fear are closely linked. It takes us away from being honest. It takes us away from our truth. If we can be more truthful in our feelings and what we feel, we become deeply authentic, which means we've got connection now to who we are. With that authenticity, not only do we connect deeply in finding peace and fulfillment in ourselves as we move through the world as leaders, we create more connection to who we are. When we create connection to who we are, we create connection to those we lead. And I'll tell you, I've got two stories here, one from sport, one from corporate. Do you know what? We'll scrap the sport one. I was lucky enough 2 weeks ago to Bristol on an away day for a corporate company. 300 of their staff there. Never met them before. I just got invited in and they asked me to come to the whole day, eat with the MD, and very lovely day. The MD got up on stage, and like most these away days, the MD or the leader kicks off with all the really interesting chat about KPIs and where the company's going and how far they've fallen behind, and all the performance indicators where you witness everybody else in the room yawning and then glugging more wine because they're just like, oh my God, I thought this was meant to be a fun away day. And he spoke all about that. And I could see everybody, the body language just dropping. So they were in the financial industry. And one of his first lines to his staff were, I know we don't exactly save lives, but, and then he went on, and told them about the vision and everything else. And I thought, wow, how to kill a room? Like, we don't exactly save lives. So when I stepped up, I grabbed the mic and we did our intro, and I called him out. And I said, Raj, where are you sitting? He put his hand up. I said, could you stand for us, please? You should have saw the shock on his workforce where the MD's been called out. And I said, I disagree with you, to a lot of gasps in the room. And I said, you are in the financial industry where you help people manage their money. And you said we don't help people save lives. And I said, I'm challenging you to do more research. What breaks homes? What breaks relationships? What causes the most amount of addiction to booze, drugs, sex, all these other hedonistic things? What creates violence in the home more than anything else? Financial worry. You do save lives. And I said, and your workforce here, all of you need to understand, you do save lives. You save relationships. You save the connection of parents to children because of looking after their finances. You do save lives. You just don't know you do. Off the back of that, we end up having one-to-one coaching, and I walk into the office and I challenged him and I said, why do you do what you do? I want it to be profitable, Rick. I came from a very poor background. Yeah, but why do you do what you do? I don't expect them lot to buy into this. Why do you do what you do? I want us to be really successful because I'm really competitive. That's great. What do you mean? Well, I want to be number one in the industry because I want to be recognized for that. Okay, cool. So now we've realized you need validation. Yeah, where did that come from? Childhood. Yep. Okay, fair enough. But we're trying to sell this to them outside. Why do you do what you do? And he says, because I don't want other families to go through what I went through. I want families to be financially stable. Okay, cool. But where does this relate to your workforce? Well, Rick, do you know what? Like, I want them to be financially rewarded as well, because I know if we can help others, I can generate enough of a profit in our company to give them really good bonuses. And what will that do? What will the bonus do then, Raj, for your staff? It will enable them to connect with their family. They haven't got to worry. They can go away on holiday, have a great Christmas, blah, 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 blah. Brilliant. Where'd you share this with them, Raj? What? Where'd you share this with them? I'm not sharing this with them. Why not? It's too much my soft side. I can't do that. But you've got honesty as a company value. It's on the website. It's in the room there. But you're a liar. I don't work with liars. Get out the room. What? You can't do that, Rick. Get out of the room. Don't work with liars. Because you're a dishonest person. If you think that you being vulnerable to share how you feel makes you seem like you don't have authority, I don't work with liars. And he was like, you can't do this. I went, yeah, I know. Let's lock the door. We've got more work to do. But what we got down to ultimately, ladies, is we got deeper into his why. And we worked through where he believes vulnerability to be, that he thought if he shared all that with his workforce, they would be more disconnected from him because he showed emotion. So he's got this big disconnection they didn't think existed. He was too busy driving them. After I gave the initial talk on his away day, the staff, as they were absolutely getting really, really drunk on the free booze they had that day, would come to me and say, Rick, love the speech, but this company is just a place for me to get money. And in the words of most of his staff, was, I don't give a shit about this place, Rick, but I'm going to use this information for my hobbies. All I do here is enough just to meet the performance indicator. I was like, what a sad place to be in. What a sad place to be that you give 35, 45 hours a week to a company you feel like this about after your leader has just spoke in front of you. So when I sat down afterwards and we went through this with him, we experimented so he stayed comfortable with his leadership team. I said, I want you to hold a meeting in the next 10 days before I see you again. And I want you to share with your leadership team what you just shared with me. And then we'll go from there. I returned 2 weeks later and I had one-to-ones with his leadership team. And I said, how did your meeting go? No word of a lie, ladies. 5 out of his 7 leadership team come in and they went, bloody hell, Rick. Do you know what? I've been here 13 years. I'd run through walls for him. And I never thought I'd say that. And I said, what's changed? He's got emotion. Like, he's got emotion, and he's made it really clear how much he cares about this place and us and why he's doing what he's doing. He's never done that before. It's like I'd run through walls for that guy now to make sure this company's a success. You're sitting there going, wow, this was a man who didn't want to talk about vulnerability. Yet vulnerability could be something as sharing your exciting vision with a company. It doesn't mean that vulnerability is holding hands, having a good cry up. Sometimes vulnerability comes in the form of sharing just how excited you are to get after a vision. That, yeah, you might fail, but you're so driven to get somewhere. That vulnerability can also be seen like that. Only then can we create, by evidence of this, deep connection to ourselves and those around us that brings us extreme fulfillment in what we do. And with that, as you well know, when we feel this level of belonging, we are more likely to expose the potential in ourselves and in those we lead around us. Because now we can relax into full authenticity, which brings everybody around us on board with the direction we're trying to go on. And when we've got that level of cohesion and belonging, it's where we've got the ability for others to try, fail, learn, go again, and expose all that potential in us that increases performance. If we can move on a slide, please, Lauren. I can't remember what I've got next. Which brings us probably to my last slide. So we've got a good 10 minutes to go through any questions. Courage is contagious. We have to understand that in us as leadership, it is the bridge to connection. And if we get that bridge to connection right, it's the bridge to ours and everybody else's ability to perform and step into our potential. We said it earlier. If we can let go of who we think we are, we give ourselves permission to step into who we know we can be. But it starts with us. It starts with leadership. It starts with who we be, not what we say, but what we do. How do we embody the message we're trying to lead the company with? I'm going to take a sip of water. If anyone anyone's got any questions or any insights, please feel free to take off your speaker and share.
Sorry, I couldn't get off mute then. Thank you so much, Rick. Gosh, so many things that have sparked my curiosity. Also a big fan of Brené Brown, actually, but it's interesting. So I'm currently doing some coaching for somebody who has a great role, really, global role, 100 people in this team. And I'm doing some stakeholder interviews to find out what they think he could both leverage and what might be holding him back. This is so on point for this right now because it sounds as though he's been given so many opportunities to be proactive and step into a bigger role, but he's not. And of course, this is the start of the journey where we can explore what is going on. But there definitely seems to be fear at the roots of it. So not really a question as such, and I haven't worked out yet, being a reflector, how this is all going to play out. But I really feel as though that's the key, that what is he afraid of? That means he can't, literally what you said, let go of who he thinks he is to be who he could be. Really interesting. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, Helen. Anybody else?
I like the example you made of Cristiano Ronaldo because he comes across as this egoistic, self-centered, arrogant. I'm not a fan of Cristiano, as you can hear, arrogant guy. But then I did watch this Netflix series about his wife. I don't remember what it's called. Very dumb, but okay. I thought, hey, I'm going to watch it because I want to learn a bit more about Cristiano. And actually, in those episodes, I did actually see a different type of Cristiano with his family, with his kids, with his wife. Then he comes across on the field or on TV, etc. So I do believe what you say, but I thought that was quite insightful how certain people come across in one way, but then actually at home they're very different. Like I wrote in the chat, I'm actually exactly the same at the office, at work with my friends, at home with my family. There's no different Halloween. I'm just the same everywhere. And I'm very lucky. I feel lucky that I can be that way. I would hate to have a different face when I'm in the office than when I'm at home. It would be very tiring, actually. But I think with many people like Cristiano, you have the impression he's one way, but he's very different than in his private life. So something definitely to consider when connecting with people, like, are they really being themselves, or is there a different them behind the face that they have at work? So thanks for sharing that.
My pleasure. Thanks, Eloina. There's another great story that there's a very famous video when he's a youngster and he's in a changing room and he's really experienced coach. Can't remember the guy's name. Phil Scolari, his Portugal manager. This is his connection with self. They say kids smell it out way quicker than adults do in other people. And I'll talk about healthy disrespect. He's not being rude and disrespectful to somebody, but this video of Cristiano where the coach is talking next to him, he's lacing his boots up and he's just like not making eye contact with the coach and just nodding, and the coach walks away. He looks at the camera, Cristiano, and just goes like this, in one ear, out the other. What does he know? He's never performed at a World Cup. He's never been to a World Cup final. He doesn't have my talent. What does he know? And he's just leave me be. Don't give me things to make me overthink and lose myself. I have a gift. I'm going to share it. Like, this to healthy disrespect. And they say that kids smell it out. I think it's not Brené Brown. I can't remember who it is. I read it last week in a research paper that kids' intuition towards adults is far stronger than adult on adult, because we've accumulated so much fear of the judgment of others and an examination that we're not enough. So we need more information. It isn't always a bad thing, that we are willing to listen to sometimes leaders who aren't embodying what it is that he says he wants or she wants. So yeah, cool
But
example.
I do think sometimes somebody with a very big ego can be scary. So like, you know, you're talking about fear, and they can build kind of a wall between you and them, and you're scared to go and collaborate with them. But I personally think that it's the opportunity to get to know them better. And, you know, they are the big ego, but then you have to start building the connection with them to break down those walls and have a real one-on-one conversation and relationship with the person, because they pretend to be one person, but they're very different sometimes. At least with my experience, I have that.
And I think that, and when you're building rapport with others, I think it's important to realize what we often do is when we feel someone has got an ego, we try to shrink it. So we think by us shrinking someone else, if we had a round circle when both of us are in it, sometimes I think we think that if we shrink someone, then we maximize the space that we can take up in the circle. But actually, we don't need to shrink someone else and their ego and their ability to share space with them. And we can be just as important without trying to shrink someone else. There's room, you know, there's room for both of us in there. And I think it's where empathy comes in, is throwing ourselves under the bus a little bit sometimes. And that comes with massive vulnerability. I can't remember who said it earlier. I think it might have been you, Laura, that said that sometimes just by going, I don't have the answers. Do you know what? I don't know. And that's where empathy comes in, that goes, I'm in empathy, being in suffering with someone else is saying, look, I don't know. I need to go away and find them. Or can I have your help? And as a leader asking for someone else's help, you imagine the trust and belief that gets put in the rest of the organization when they go, okay, cool, we are in this together now. This is not about you and me. You just created an us story rather than a you story and a me story. We started to use us and we get workforces now full of trust and belief. I could go on for another hour or two, but I know we can't. Ladies, if anyone's found it really useful or would love someone to come in to deliver a keynote or an away day, please do find me on my website, www.rick_cooper.com, or DM me off that website. I'm more than happy to talk further. I've loved this. It's really energized me today. I'm also in Easter half term, so to get out of the house for the afternoon and be able to deliver is like, yes.
Oh, lovely. Thank you so much, Rick. I'm sure everybody here will agree that, you know, that was a really honest, insightful and thought-provoking talk. And yeah, I just really enjoyed listening to you and your stories and, you know, what everybody else shared as well. So yeah, thank you on kind of behalf of everybody that's here.
Thank you.
As Rick said, if you want to get in touch with him, we can, when I send out the follow-up email, I'll make sure that there's a link to his website. And then just quickly, so our next session is on Thursday, the 8th of May, and that's with Kathy Nell, who's doing a session on the leadership shadow. So I believe the invites for that have already gone out. So again, I'll send a reminder about that in the follow-up email. And then just obviously, thank you all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for the Learning Leaders Network session today. We'd love you, if you've enjoyed today's session, to share about it on LinkedIn and make sure you tag us and tag Rick as well. Connect with us, so follow BLT, follow Rick on LinkedIn. There will also be a little feedback link in the follow-up email. It's just a real couple of questions to get your feedback on today's session. And then if there's anybody that you think would value being part of this network, then obviously get in touch with me and we can get them invited and added as well. But if there's no additional questions, then I will leave you to prepare for the Easter weekend. Halloween, you've got one more day left, have you?
Yeah, one more day left,
yeah.
But don't worry. I just came back from holiday, so it doesn't matter. I don't need long weekends, so it's okay.
Oh, perfect. So
all right, enjoy.
Yeah, I'll leave you all to your weekend and see you all again soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Have a happy Easter. Bye.
Thanks, ladies.
Hey, let me just stop the recording. I never know how to stop it. There we go. Stop recording.